There are everyday things you do, small, harmless things, that slowly destroy your power without you noticing. And the tragedy is that they never announce themselves as threats. They feel natural, automatic, even polite, yet behind their softness lies corrosion. Power rarely collapses in a single catastrophic moment. It decays quietly, privately, through habits repeated so often they become invisible to you while glaringly obvious to everyone else. People don't watch for your grand failures. They study your micro-movements, the subtle cracks in your presence, the silent tells that reveal whether you are someone to respect or someone to use. And most of the time, you are the last to know which one they've decided you are. Because the truth is simple, you lose power long before you realize it. Not in battles, not in arguments, not in dramatic betrayals, but in small daily leaks that weaken the edges of your character. Power is not taken from you. You give it away, piece by piece, in moments so small you don't feel the loss. A sigh before speaking, a nervous explanation, a self-conscious laugh, a habit of shrinking your voice because you fear being misunderstood. These are not mistakes, they are patterns. And patterns become identities. What you tolerate in yourself becomes what others expect from you, and eventually what they exploit. You teach the world how to treat you by the small behaviors you repeat when you think no one is paying attention. But everyone is paying attention. Everyone is always watching for the faintest sign of weakness because weakness is opportunity. You cannot afford unconscious habits. Not in a world where people take without asking, judge without speaking, and position themselves above you the moment you show uncertainty. And among all these quiet leaks, there is one that destroys you faster than you realize: over-explaining. Every time you justify your decisions, your boundaries, your preferences, your choices, you tell the world that you doubt yourself. You may not say those words directly, but people hear them anyway. The moment you explain too much, they feel it. The tremor beneath your tone, the need to be understood, the fear of disappointing someone, the desire to avoid conflict. And once someone senses that need, they stop seeing you as decisive and start seeing you as negotiable. You become furniture, present, functional, predictable, incapable of influencing the room. A man who explains himself excessively is not communicating, he is apologizing. And power cannot coexist with apology. You've seen this man before, maybe you've been this man. The one who apologizes before speaking, as if his voice must be excused. Sorry, can I ask something? Sorry, I didn't mean to bother. He hasn't said anything yet, but he has already lowered himself. Or the one who can't simply say no, he builds a story around it, explaining every angle, every detail, as if he needs permission to have a boundary. He thinks he's being polite, he thinks he's avoiding conflict, but everyone around him senses exactly what he's doing, begging not to be judged. Then there's the man who narrates his thoughts, filling every silence with justifications so no one mistakes him for harsh, arrogant, or rude. He speaks to prevent misunderstanding, but ends up looking like he doesn't know where he stands. People don't respect him for explaining, they disrespect him for needing to. This is how psychological predators find you. They don't need you to be weak, they only need you to show the small signs. Because over-explaining is not about communication, it is about insecurity. It reveals fear. It reveals a need for approval. It reveals your willingness to bend if someone pushes hard enough. A subtle smile from the wrong person becomes a leash. A question becomes a test. A raised eyebrow becomes an invitation to justify yourself even more. You don't notice the trap being set because it feels like a conversation. But they're not listening to your explanations. They're studying your weakness. And once you show weakness, the dynamic shifts forever. You cannot reclaim the authority you surrendered in those moments. Not easily and not cleanly. A powerful man does not explain, he declares. He does not justify, he chooses. He does not walk you through his reasons, he stands on them. His presence does the talking long before his words do. His decisions feel final because he treats them as final. Not emotional, not defensive, not desperate for agreement. Power is quiet, not because it lacks words, but because it does not beg to be understood. When a man's sense of direction comes from within, he doesn't need to narrate his steps. When a man is grounded, he doesn't rush to clear misunderstandings. When a man is confident, he doesn't care whether someone thinks he is wrong. Words are tools for clarity. They become liabilities when you use them to compensate for uncertainty. And the moment your speech tries to fix what your presence should command, you have already lost control of the room. You may think over-explaining makes you considerate. You may believe it prevents conflict. You may assume people will appreciate the honesty, the transparency, the effort, but power does not grow where effort replaces certainty. And the people you hope to reassure will eventually lose respect for you instead. Not because they are cruel, not because they wish you harm, but because you are teaching them through repetition that your stance can be softened with the right pressure. You teach them that your boundaries are not boundaries, but invitations to negotiate. You teach them that you do not trust your own decisions unless they approve. And nothing drains power faster than needing others to agree with your existence. If you pay attention, you'll notice how people treat the ones who never explain themselves. They speak less but command more. They set boundaries without apology. They make decisions without theatrics. They are not rude, they are certain. And certainty has weight. It changes how people listen. It changes how people speak to you. It changes what they expect from you. Power is not in the explanation, it is in the lack of it. The less you justify, the more your words matter. The less you defend, the more your decisions stand. The less you seek validation, the more people believe you already have it. But this is only the beginning. Over-explaining is the first leak, the quietest, the smallest, the most socially acceptable. Yet it is the doorway. Because once someone knows you fear judgment, they know exactly how to control you. And there is another behavior you do every day, one you believe makes you likable, agreeable, even admirable, but it quietly erodes your power in every room you enter. There is a social habit you've practiced your entire life, a behavior so common you don't question it, so normalized you assume it makes you polite, likable, even morally superior. But in reality, it quietly dissolves your presence. It softens your edges, lowers your status, and invites people to treat you as a background character. It doesn't feel dangerous, because it masquerades as kindness. It doesn't feel costly, because it earns you momentary approval. Yet beneath the surface, it erodes your power every time you do it. If over-explaining weakens you internally, this habit weakens you socially. And it is this: you smile when you don't mean it. You become agreeable when you feel resistance. You pretend to be comfortable when you are not. You nod, you laugh, you soften your voice, all to reassure others that you are harmless. And in doing so, you teach them that you are safe to ignore. People watch your face before your words. They read the micro-expressions you aren't aware you're giving. The smile you use to hide discomfort doesn't protect you, it exposes you. The nervous laugh after someone disrespects you isn't humility, it's submission. The quick nod to avoid tension isn't diplomacy, it's surrender. These reactions feel automatic, but they are not harmless. They tell others you fear confrontation. They tell others you need their approval more than their respect. They tell others you'll place their comfort above your own dignity. And once someone sees you do this even once, they understand exactly how to handle you. They won't challenge you with cruelty. They'll use you with ease, because you've shown them your instinct is not to assert, but to appease. Think of the man who smiles while being interrupted, trying to look unfazed. He thinks it makes him composed, but everyone sees the truth. He doesn't know how to hold his ground. Or the man who laughs nervously after someone insults him, hoping it diffuses the tension. He believes he's being mature, but people read it as permission to continue. Or the man who nods along to opinions he dislikes because he fears being seen as difficult. He imagines he's being collaborative, but he's actually erasing himself. These small gestures, the fake smile, the forced laugh, the agreeable nod, are not signals of kindness. They are signals of weakness. And predators, opportunists, manipulators, and even ordinary people subconsciously adjust their behavior around those signals. Because power is not decided by your intentions, it's decided by your reactions. The moment your face betrays a need to be liked, you become someone to manage, not someone to respect. People will speak to you differently. They will test boundaries they'd never test with someone who holds expression like a blade. They will raise their voice slightly, interrupt slightly, take slightly more space, because they know you will yield. These are not dramatic shifts. They're subtle. A tone of voice lowered by half a degree, a comment pushed 1 inch further than politeness allows. A request framed as if your time is already owed. And you, conditioned by years of social smoothing, will smile your way through it while your power drains drop by drop. Niceness is not the issue. Weakness disguised as niceness is. There is a kind of kindness that comes from confidence, quiet, grounded, deliberate. And then there is the other kind, the fearful kind, where every smile is a negotiation, every laugh is a plea, and every nod is a hope that people will not turn against you. The first type strengthens presence, the second type destroys it, because people do not respect the man who cannot show a neutral face. They respect the man who does not perform for approval. They respect the man who is unbothered by silence, unimpressed by pressure, unshaken by the discomfort of others. This man does not smile unless he chooses to. His expressions appear when they are earned. His reactions are real, not reflexive, and because of that, every small gesture carries weight. You must understand, social dynamics are not built on what you say. They are built on what you signal. A neutral expression can be more powerful than a dozen sentences. A moment of silence can shift an entire conversation. A calm, steady gaze can end a manipulator's attempt before it begins. But these tools only exist for the man whose face is not a mask of appeasement. The man who does not hide his truth behind forced softness radiates an aura people feel immediately. They sense he cannot be pushed into comfort. They sense he does not fear awkwardness. They sense he does not fear rejection. And when someone does not fear rejection, they become very difficult to control. Most men never reach this state because they believe their social instincts are harmless. They fear being seen as cold, so they overcorrect into performative warmth. They fear being misunderstood, so they plaster a smile over discomfort. They fear losing approval, not realizing that every time they chase it, they lose respect instead. But power is built on reality, not performance. People follow the men who can hold their truth without shrinking it for others. People trust the men who do not distort themselves to be accepted. People gravitate toward the men who remain the same in every room, not bending, not faking, not adjusting their face like a salesman. Once you stop giving these signals, people treat you differently instantly. They speak more carefully. They choose their words with precision. They pause before making assumptions, not because you threaten them, but because you do not present yourself as someone seeking their emotional approval. There is gravity in that. There is mystery. There is control. You don't demand respect. Your presence demands it for you. But the moment you practice social softness out of fear, that gravity dissolves. You become easy to read, easy to use, easy to place beneath others without them even noticing they're doing it. And yet, even this is not the most damaging behavior men practice every day. There is another pattern, deeper, more internal, a mental habit so ingrained that it affects your power before you even open your mouth. It shapes how you think, how you move, how you interpret the world, and it sabotages your influence long before you enter the room. There is a mental pattern you carry with you everywhere you go. A silent, invisible behavior that shapes your presence long before you speak, long before you move, long before anyone even notices you've entered the room. It's not something you say. It's not something you do. It's something you believe, and this belief quietly destroys your power from the inside out. It makes you hesitate where you should act. It makes you doubt where you should decide. It makes you shrink where you should expand. The worst part is that it feels normal, familiar, even rational. Most men call it humility, self-awareness, or caution, but in truth, it is psychological sabotage. It is the habit of assuming others see you more negatively than they actually do. It is the habit of overestimating how much people judge you, criticize you, analyze you. This mental error is simple. You believe people are thinking about you far more than they are. This belief turns your mind into a battlefield. You replay conversations long after they've ended. You analyze tone shifts that meant nothing. You imagine people noticing flaws they never even saw. You interpret silence as disapproval. You treat every social moment as a performance with an imaginary audience watching closely, waiting to criticize you. And so every room becomes a stage of self-defense. You walk in already on edge, already monitoring yourself, already adjusting your behavior to avoid mistakes no one is looking for. People are not watching you. People are not dissecting your presence. People are not memorizing your every gesture. But because you assume they are, you move with tension instead of certainty. And tension makes you appear unsure, anxious, and easy to influence. Power requires an internal frame. When your mind is shaped by imaginary critics, your frame collapses. You don't decide who you are. You wait for permission. You don't speak from clarity. You speak from fear of misinterpretation. You don't act from conviction. You act from prediction of judgment. This mental error turns you into a reactor, always adjusting, always calculating, always bracing for impact. But the truth is brutally simple. Most people are too absorbed in their own insecurities to notice yours. They are too busy surviving their own internal storms to study your face. Yet you let phantom critics dictate your behavior. And once the mind bends to imaginary pressure, real pressure becomes unbearable. This is how influence dies, quietly, internally, in the privacy of your own thoughts. Think of the man who overthinks every message he sends, rewriting sentences to avoid sounding too assertive, too soft, too forward, too distant. He imagines judgment that isn't there, or the man who hesitates before speaking, rehearsing his line in his head, terrified of saying the wrong thing. He believes people will remember his slip-up more than they actually will. Or the man who mirrors the emotions of the room because he assumes his own presence is not enough. All of these behaviors have one root. He assumes he is being scrutinized. He assumes people care deeply about his choices. But real power comes from recognizing that most people aren't thinking about you at all. And the moment you realize that, a strange freedom appears. The freedom to move without fear. This mental error does something even more destructive. It makes you abandon your own instincts. When you believe others are constantly evaluating you, you stop listening to yourself. You override your intuition to align with imaginary expectations. You soften insights, dilute emotions, and hide opinions that should be spoken boldly. And because your inner voice weakens, your outer voice becomes uncertain. People sense this immediately, even if they don't understand why. You speak with the energy of a man who doubts himself. You gesture like someone waiting for approval. You enter conversations like someone expecting to be corrected. And in a world built on psychological hierarchies, self-doubt is an open invitation for others to lead you instead of respect you. Manipulators thrive on this kind of mind. They don't need to overpower you. They only need to hint at disapproval, a raised eyebrow, a sigh, a strategic silence. They know you'll adjust immediately, desperate to restore harmony, terrified of having done something wrong. You become easy to steer because you are steering yourself away from imaginary conflict. The person who does not fear being judged is dangerous. The person who assumes judgment is everywhere is predictable. And predictable men cannot hold power. Their thoughts work against them. Their fears reveal their weak points. Their assumptions become chains. But here is the deeper damage this mental error creates. It traps you in a loop, where every action becomes a negotiation against an audience that doesn't exist. You never fully inhabit your choices. You never fully inhabit your body. You never fully inhabit your identity. You live in anticipation instead of presence. You measure yourself constantly, and self-measurement, when done excessively, becomes self-minimization. You shrink in real time. You bend without being asked. You submit without being challenged, not because others demand it, but because you believe they might. A powerful mind operates differently. A powerful mind assumes nothing. It does not imagine judgment. It does not fear misunderstanding. It does not create invisible enemies. It stays rooted in its own perspective first and interprets the world from that center. When such a man enters a room, he does not ask, "What do they think of me?" He asks, "What is this room, and what do I choose to do in it?" That single shift in mental orientation changes everything. Posture, voice, presence, decisions. You cannot fake this shift. You must build it internally by dismantling the mental habit of projecting your insecurity onto the world around you. But the mind has another enemy, one that operates deeper than fear of judgment. A habit so emotionally reactive that once it takes hold, it gives other people the ability to control you effortlessly, instantly, and without your awareness. And most men practice this habit daily, believing it shows passion, authenticity, or honesty, without realizing it quietly hands their power to anyone who knows how to provoke them. There is an emotional habit that destroys power faster than all the others combined. Not because it is loud, but because it is immediate. It bypasses your logic, your strategy, your awareness. It pulls you out of the present moment and into raw reaction. And the moment you react emotionally before you think, your power is no longer yours. Someone else controls the tempo. Someone else controls the frame. Someone else controls you. This habit feels natural, instinctive, even righteous. Most men mistake it for honesty. They believe it proves authenticity, passion, truth. But in reality, it exposes vulnerability so naked that anyone with even basic social intelligence can use it against you. The habit is simple. You let your emotions appear on your face before you understand them. You reveal your inner state too quickly. You react visibly to provocation, discomfort, pressure, or disrespect. And the second someone sees your emotional truth before you can command it, they gain leverage. The emotionally undisciplined man betrays himself with speed. He tightens his jaw when criticized. His eyes widen when challenged. His expression falls when ignored. His breathing changes when tension rises. These micro-reactions tell the world exactly where to press if they want to influence him. They reveal his limits, his insecurities, his weak points. He thinks people don't notice, but people notice immediately. Humans are biologically wired to read faces, tones, and micro-expressions. A raised eyebrow from the wrong person becomes a hook. A sigh becomes an entry point. A flinch becomes an opportunity. When your emotions move faster than your judgment, you become a puppet whose strings are visible to everyone but yourself. Think of the man who becomes visibly irritated when someone disagrees with him. He doesn't speak yet, but his face already declares his fragility. Or the man who looks wounded the moment someone dismisses his idea. He has said nothing, yet everyone senses his need for validation. Or the man who stiffens when someone more dominant enters the room. He is not speaking, but he is already yielding authority. These reactions are not obvious to him. They feel instinctive, involuntary, harmless. But to others, especially to people who understand power, they are maps. Maps to his soft spots. Maps to the emotional buttons that can be pressed to manipulate him. Maps to the exact triggers that break his composure. Emotional leakage invites psychological predators more effectively than any spoken weakness. The manipulator does not need to insult you, he only needs to observe. He does not need to confront you, he only needs to test you. Maybe he interrupts you mid-sentence to see if your face twitches. Maybe he challenges a small point to see if you bristle. Maybe he shifts his tone slightly colder to see if you retreat. The moment you reveal your internal weather, he adapts. And once he adapts, he leads. This is why emotional control is not about suppression, it is about timing. A powerful man feels everything, but reveals nothing until he decides to. He gives his emotions privacy. He does not let the world see the spark before it becomes fire. Most men assume strength is about speaking boldly, asserting loudly, reacting intensely. But real power is quiet. It is the stillness beneath the storm. It is the man whose face remains unchanged regardless of provocation. His lack of visible reaction becomes a shield. People cannot read him, they cannot predict him, they cannot pressure him, because pressure requires feedback, and he gives none. His silence becomes unsettling. His calmness becomes authority. His emotional self-containment forces others to reveal themselves first, and in any conflict, the one who reveals least possesses the advantage. But emotional leakage does more than expose weakness. It disrupts your judgment. When you react too quickly, you cannot see clearly. You interpret things personally that were never personal. You respond to imagined attacks. You escalate trivial moments into battles. Your emotions hijack your perception, and once perception is skewed, every decision you make becomes compromised. You might defend yourself unnecessarily. You might argue when silence would have won. You might retreat when you should have stood your ground. You might submit when you should have challenged. Emotional reactivity breaks your alignment with reality, and once reality is distorted, influence becomes impossible. The world respects the man who stays unmoved, not numb, unmoved. There is a difference. Numbness is emotional death. Unmoved composure is emotional mastery. This is the man whose face remains neutral when criticized. The man who looks unshaken when challenged. The man who listens quietly when insulted, giving nothing away. People cannot manipulate a mind they cannot provoke. They cannot control a man whose emotional switches are inaccessible to them. And this type of presence, calm, unreadable, self-contained, instantly shifts the hierarchy of any room. But emotional leakage has one more consequence, and it is the most devastating. When your internal reactions appear too easily, people begin to feel superior to you. You don't notice the shift, but they do. They begin to test you more often. They begin to speak with less caution. They begin to treat you as someone predictable, manageable, influenceable. Not out of malice, but out of instinct. Humans follow the calm. They dominate the reactive. The moment someone sees that they can shake you, even a little, they unconsciously position themselves above you. And from that moment on, every interaction becomes tilted. Yet even this is not the deepest loss of power men experience. There is another signal, a physical one that you give off without realizing it. A habit so subtle that most men think it has no meaning. But in reality, it destroys presence before you even speak, before you even make eye contact, before you even realize what message your body is broadcasting to the world. There is a physical signal you broadcast everywhere you go, a silent, constant transmission that tells people exactly how to treat you before you speak a single word. It is not your height, your build, your clothing, or your aesthetic. It is something far more subtle, far more primal, far more revealing, and you give it away without noticing. This signal shapes the first impression you leave, the authority you project, the respect you command, and the boundaries people assume you have. Most men think presence is built through dramatic gestures or bold posture, but presence is not built in moments of performance. It is built in the unconscious habits your body repeats when you are not paying attention. And the most destructive of these habits is simple. Your body collapses toward the world instead of holding its own space. Your shoulders subtly roll forward when someone more dominant approaches. Your neck tilts down slightly when you feel unsure. Your hands fidget or seek pockets when tension rises. Your spine curves inward when you enter unfamiliar spaces. These tiny, almost invisible collapses communicate one message: I yield. You're not saying it verbally, you're not thinking it consciously, but your body is speaking its own language, and everyone reads that language instantly. Humans have been decoding posture for thousands of years, long before speech existed. Your physiology tells others where you believe you stand in the hierarchy. And when your body contracts, folds, shrinks, or retreats, people sense your insecurity before they even hear your voice. Think of the man who enters a room with his shoulders slightly hunched, trying not to be noticed. He isn't hiding, he's surrendering. Or the man whose footwork shifts nervously when confronted, one leg stepping back unconsciously, as if preparing for retreat. He thinks it's harmless, but the room reads it as weakness. Or the man who breaks eye contact too quickly. Not a deliberate choice, a reflex. He doesn't realize he just handed dominance to the other person. These gestures look small, but in the psychology of power, small signals create large consequences. People treat you based on the hierarchy your body reveals, not the hierarchy you believe you deserve. Powerful people take up space without trying. They don't puff their chests or spread their arms. That's performance, not presence. Real physical authority comes from stillness. The spine stays long, the shoulders relax back. The gaze is steady, not aggressive. The breath is slow and grounded. Their movements are economical, not frantic. They do not scan the room, they let the room scan them. Their walk is measured, not rushed. Their hands rest easily, not searching for pockets or objects to hold. Nothing about them says, I'm nervous. Nothing about them says, I hope you accept me. Their body communicates one simple truth: I belong. But here is where most men quietly destroy themselves. They believe presence is about looking confident, so they imitate confident posture for a moment or two, but collapse the second they feel judged. Power does not come from the pose you hold intentionally. It comes from the posture you return to automatically, and the posture most men return to is shaped by years of insecurity, self-doubt, and social conditioning. Their body has been trained to shrink. Their physiology has been sculpted to avoid threat, not create impact. This is why their presence crumbles under pressure. Their body has no internal frame. Your walk reveals more than you think. Men who rush signal anxiety. Men who shuffle signal submission. Men who drag their feet signal resignation. Men who overstride signal overcompensation. The powerful man's walk is balanced, deliberate, grounded. He is not in a hurry because power moves at its own pace. He does not change direction abruptly because he does not react. He decides. Even the rhythm of his steps communicates that he is the one who sets tempo. People feel it before they understand it. They step aside without knowing why. Your breathing exposes you even more. Shallow breaths signal fear. Quick breaths signal agitation. Irregular breaths signal insecurity. You cannot fake calm breath. The body exposes truth before the mind catches up. Manipulators feel this instantly. Dominant personalities pick up on it unconsciously. Even ordinary people adjust their tone and posture around you based on how you breathe. This is why emotional control and physical control are connected. The man who breathes slowly is the man who cannot be rushed, cannot be provoked, cannot be destabilized. And yet, perhaps the most powerful physical signal you give off is how you sit or stand when you are not the focus of attention. Most men collapse when they believe no one is watching. Legs closed, shoulders pulled in, back curved, hands clasped nervously. This is the body position of a man anticipating impact, a man preparing for disapproval, a man waiting for permission. But a powerful man remains grounded even in stillness. He sits as if he is holding court, not arrogantly, steadily. His spine remains strong, his shoulders open, his breathing slow. He does not perform presence, he inhabits it. And because he inhabits it, people feel it before they consciously register it. But the body has one final betrayal: routine. The small daily habits that shape your physical identity. The way you sleep, the way you eat, the way you move when alone, the way you carry yourself when unobserved. Everything you practice in private becomes your posture in public. And most men live in routines that teach their body to contract, shrink, collapse inward. They sit buried in screens, curved like prey animals. They walk with their gaze downward, conditioned to avoid confrontation. They speak with lifted eyebrows, signaling that they seek approval rather than hold authority. None of these habits feel dramatic, but power is not lost dramatically. It is lost physiologically, through the shape you allow your body to adopt day after day. You think presence is built in public, but it is built in private, and every routine, every micro movement, every unconscious gesture is either strengthening your aura or weakening it. Yet even this is not the final or most dangerous erosion of power. There is something deeper, something almost invisible that corrodes men from within long before their body signals weakness. A pattern so subtle, so internal, so familiar that most men never recognize it for what it is. And by the time they notice, their power is already gone. There is a final corrosion, the deepest and most invisible pattern of all. A slow internal decay that dissolves a man's power long before the world ever notices. It is not a behavior you perform, nor a gesture you make, nor a reaction you show. It is the silent doctrine you live by without realizing it. A hidden philosophy woven into your thoughts, your habits, your expectations. And because it operates beneath awareness, it is the most dangerous leak of all. This pattern determines whether you rise in the world or remain permanently beneath everyone you meet. It is not dramatic, it is not emotional, it is not even consciously chosen. It is simply this: you assume power is something external, something given to you by others, something measured by how people treat you. And the moment you believe power lives outside of you, you make yourself dependent on the world to validate your existence. This dependency restructures your entire psychology. You stop moving with internal certainty and begin moving with external permission. You assess yourself through the reactions of others. You wait for acceptance before acting. You mirror the expectations around you instead of imposing your own. Slowly, without noticing, you become a man shaped by the world instead of a man who shapes the world. This is the final corrosion because it is not one habit, it is the foundation beneath every habit. It makes you overexplain because you think people have the right to approve your decisions. It makes you soften your expressions because you think their perception defines your value. It makes you overreact emotionally because your sense of self depends on external stability. It weakens your posture because you feel smaller than the environment you walk through. Everything returns to this one belief: you think power belongs to others. Think of the man who constantly checks whether people like him. He is not interacting, he is seeking confirmation that he exists. Or the man who changes his voice depending on who he speaks to, as if his identity must be negotiated with every new presence. Or the man who waits to see what others think before claiming an opinion. These are not random insecurities, they are symptoms of the same disease. A man who does not see himself as the source of his own power cannot create boundaries, cannot command respect, cannot hold presence. He becomes a reflection rather than a force, an echo rather than a voice, a participant in a hierarchy he never chose but silently accepted. This internal dependency corrodes judgment. When you believe others hold your power, you measure every decision through fear of losing their approval. You analyze their emotions more than your own. You defer to their reactions instead of your reasoning. You operate like a servant seeking favor rather than a strategist shaping outcomes. And because you place other people at the center of your psychological universe, you orbit them like a satellite, predictable, anxious, waiting. A man who orbits is never respected. A man who orbits is never feared. A man who orbits becomes invisible, even when he speaks loudly. But here is the darkest consequence of this final corrosion. It creates a life where you betray yourself constantly. Every time you silence your instinct to match the expectations of others, you teach your nervous system that your own voice cannot be trusted. Every time you defer to someone else's authority, you weaken your inner authority. Every time you choose comfort over conviction, you reinforce a belief that you are not meant to lead. These betrayals accumulate quietly. They become identity, and identity becomes fate. Most men do not fall because of external enemies. They fall because they no longer believe they are allowed to be powerful. This belief is so deeply embedded that you rarely notice when it operates. It sits beneath your speech, beneath your posture, beneath your emotional reactions, beneath your choices. It is the invisible architecture of weakness. A man who believes power comes from others moves like prey. He scans the environment for cues. He modifies himself to fit in. He shrinks the moment someone stronger enters the room. His entire reality is built around avoiding loss. And when your goal is to avoid loss, you never create opportunity. You never assert influence. You never leave an imprint on the world. You move through life quietly, carefully, forgettably. But the inverse is just as true. The moment you shift this belief, the moment you internalize that power is generated within, not granted by others, the entire architecture of your presence changes. You stop explaining, you stop appeasing, you stop reacting, you stop shrinking. Your emotions return to your control, your posture reorganizes itself, your voice regains weight, your decisions sharpen, your presence thickens. You become a center of gravity rather than a figure drifting in someone else's orbit. People feel the shift instantly, even if they cannot explain it. They move around you differently, they speak to you differently, they listen differently. Because you are no longer acting from dependency, you are acting from inner authority. This is the final corrosion because it is the root of all others. When you believe the world owns your power, everyone becomes a potential judge. When you believe you own your power, the world becomes a stage, not a threat. And once this core belief shifts, the small daily leaks that weakened you begin to disappear on their own. The over-explaining stops, the nervous smiles fade, the emotional leakage disappears, the collapsing posture strengthens. Your entire psychology rewrites itself around a new truth, that power is not given, it is recognized. And when you recognize your own, others have no choice but to do the same. Yet most men never reach this realization because they are too busy surviving the daily noise of their own insecurity. They never explore the deeper cause. They never question the subconscious belief that governs their behavior. They never ask the one question that determines everything. If I stop depending on the world to define me, who do I become? And the world is not prepared for the man who discovers the answer. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. Power doesn't disappear in a single blow, it leaks. In your habits, in your reactions, in the tiny concessions you make without noticing. The smallest weaknesses become the biggest losses. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to stop giving your power away piece by piece? Are you willing to examine every quiet habit that drains you? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I stop the leaks. Let's see how many here are truly ready to reclaim the strength they've been losing in silence. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important, much more than you imagine. See you there.